Are monsters born, or do they get assembled along the way, like IKEA furniture with one too many missing screws? It's a question we ask when society produces someone whose name makes people wince. And when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier turned predator, the question practically writes itself. How does a child called Bear by his mom turn into a man whose name is forever linked with manipulation, abuse, and power gone horribly wrong? To answer that, we need to rewind the tape, back before the private jets, the Manhattan mansions, and the infamous friends list that read like a political who's who. Let's return to where it all began, a quiet seaside community in Brooklyn, the Bear and Puggy years. Epstein grew up in Seagate, a gated community tucked into the far edge of Coney Island in the 1950s and 60s. Think suburban-style streets, Jewish community spirit, and a beachfront backdrop that made childhood feel like a postcard, if your postcard also came with occasional waves of anti-Semitism. Jeffrey's parents, Seymour and Paula, were the children of European immigrants, many of whose families had barely survived the Holocaust. Seymour earned his living first with his father's house-wrecking business, then later with the New York City Parks Department. Paula juggled a job while managing a household that included Jeffrey and his younger brother, Mark. At home, Jeffrey was Bear, while Mark answered to Puggy. Neighbors remembered the Epsteins as gentle and unassuming. Friends recall Paula as a mother who somehow did it all: job, home, kids, without the benefit of a smartphone or caffeine drip. And Jeffrey? He was smart, really smart. Mathematics was his jam, but music was a close second. He started piano young, delighting friends with his skills. In high school photos, his face wasn't hardened into the smugness the world would later come to know. Friends described him as sweet, generous, and even a little shy. Back then, he was the kid everyone called Epi, not the man whose surname would one day make headlines for all the wrong reasons: the sweetheart, the struggles, and the stigma. Epstein attended Lafayette High School in Gravesend, a working-class blend of Italian, Jewish, and African-American students. But while the yearbook might have looked like a melting pot, the streets told another story. Anti-Semitism wasn't rare, and tensions between Jewish families and the existing Italian community sometimes boiled over. One Lafayette alum described the place as volatile. That hostility seeped into personal lives too. Beverly Donatelli, one of Epstein's classmates, and even briefly his girlfriend, remembered her mother liking Jeffrey, but also warning her with a cultural line she would never forget: Jewish boys don't marry Italian girls. It was the kind of division that shaped young relationships, even before the kids fully understood why. Epstein's academic path after Lafayette took him to Cooper Union and then to NYU. He never finished a degree, but in true Epstein fashion, that didn't stop him. He had the brains and charisma to slide through doors that usually required diplomas. The first of those doors opened at one of the most prestigious prep schools in Manhattan, from Seagate to Dalton. Here's where the Epstein story takes one of its stranger turns. Without a degree, Epstein somehow landed a job teaching math and science at the elite Dalton School in Manhattan. It was the kind of gig most young teachers would sell their souls, or at least their student loans, for. At Dalton, he caught the eye of people who would shape his future. Soon, Epstein swapped chalk dust for cufflinks and entered the world of finance. It was like watching a kid hop from the kiddie pool straight into shark-infested waters and thrive. By the early 1980s, Epstein was moving money and making connections. He knew the right people, said the right things, and cultivated an aura of mystery. By the time Vanity Fair profiled him in 2002, associates described him as Gatsby-esque, rich, aloof, secretive. Donald Trump, who counted Epstein as a friend, once said he was a lot of fun to be with, and that he liked beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. That quote aged like milk left in the sun, the double life. Epstein wasn't just wealthy, he wanted the world to know he belonged in the highest social circles. He threw millions at Harvard, $35 million to be exact, because nothing says, East Coast elite, quite like having your name in crimson lights. He surrounded himself with powerful men: Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, and retail magnate Leslie Wexner. Despite this glittering circle, Epstein was oddly reclusive about ordinary things. He despised restaurants, once saying eating out was like dining on the subway. Instead, he preferred hosting in his mansion, one of Manhattan's largest private homes, where he was in control of the guest list and, more disturbingly, everything else. Love, lust, and manipulation. Epstein never married, though he entertained the idea. Disturbingly, in 2014, he said that if he were to marry, it would be to Selena Dubin, who was just 19 at the time. Oh, and also the daughter of his ex-girlfriend. For context, Selena and Epstein weren't even romantically linked. It was like announcing your dream wedding to your ex's teenager. Creepy doesn't even cover it. His most enduring relationship, however, was with Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite and daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell. They dated in the early 90s, but Maxwell remained a permanent fixture in his life long after. One of Epstein's exes recalled Maxwell casually mentioning that she still slept in his bed. Another said Maxwell was obsessed with earning Epstein's approval, like she was still trying to impress her father. Their loyalty came at a dark price. After Epstein's death, Maxwell was arrested in 2020 and later convicted of sex trafficking. She's now serving a 20-year sentence. During her sentencing, she told the court, "Jeffrey Epstein should have been here before all of you, but it is for me to be sentenced." A half acknowledgement, but not nearly enough for the victims. The orbit of exploitation. Publicly, Epstein often appeared with beautiful, unnamed women, always introduced as guests or mystery companions. Privately, the reality was far more sinister. According to lawyers and investigators, Epstein cultivated an orbit of young women, many underage, who were manipulated into recruiting others. Victims were handed cash if they could bring more girls into the cycle. His homes became traps disguised as luxury retreats. His New York mansion, his Palm Beach estate, his island in the Virgin Islands, they were all stages for the same pattern of abuse. One former girlfriend described him as emotionally stunted, obsessed with control, and perpetually in need of arm candy. Another ex said he weaponized ideas like polyamory, exploiting her lack of self-esteem to keep her in his grip. To Epstein, people weren't companions, they were collectibles. He wanted to appear as the man who owned everyone in his orbit. And tragically, for years, he got away with it. Conviction, prison, and death. Epstein's first major reckoning came in 2008, when he was convicted on charges of procuring a minor for prostitution. He served just 13 months, much of it under work release that allowed him to spend his days outside of jail. For many, this sweetheart deal symbolized the two-tiered justice system, one for the powerful, another for everyone else. But his crimes caught up with him again in 2019, when he was arrested on federal charges of sex trafficking minors. The evidence was damning, and the case explosive. Before he could stand trial, Epstein died in his jail cell under circumstances that fueled conspiracy theories around the world. Maxwell's later conviction solidified the reality. Epstein's empire of abuse wasn't just about him. It was a machine of manipulation, power, and silence. From bear to predator. What changed? So how does a boy nicknamed Bear, described as sweet and generous, grow into someone whose legacy is synonymous with predation? Was it ambition without morality? Charisma weaponized? Or simply the fact that the structures around him, wealth, power, privilege, let him get away with things until it was too late? Maybe it's all of the above. Epstein's story is a chilling reminder that monsters aren't always born with claws. Sometimes, they're built one compromise at a time, one unchecked abuse of power after another, until the mask slips and society realizes too late what was lurking underneath. And that, my friends, is the rise and terrifying fall of Jeffrey Epstein. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, or even just plain wild, don't forget to hit that like and make sure you subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think monsters are born or made? I'll be reading and replying to your takes. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.